Hello all, and welcome to Adaptation, the ultimate vlog for film adaptations and the original material they're based on. I'm Jennifer Dick, and you're in for a treat today. You see, a little while ago, we received a request from one of you. A spotlight vlog on Phantom of the Opera, specifically on the 2004 version, but we figured, hey, why stop there? So fasten your seatbelts, viewers, because Phantom, or as I like to call it, Poto, is a bit popular when it comes to adaptations. But to start with, the source material, because it's really not an adaptation without that. So the Phantom of the Opera, or rather, Le Fantôme de l'Opéra, was written in 1909 by French author Gaston Leroux. It tells the story of the opera ghost, the Phantom, who haunts the Paris Opera House. A brilliant musical talent, but deformed since birth, he falls in love with a chorus singer, tutors her, demands she be given the lead roles, while simultaneously terrorizing everyone else. And that's just where it starts. So needless to say, there's a lot there. And filmmakers seem to think so too, all the way back to the 1920s. In 1925, the first adaptation of Phantom of the Opera was released, a silent version starring Lon Chaney. This was the bedrock of it all, featuring an iconic reveal scene of the Phantom's face under his mask, a moment often cited as one of the most memorable in film history. Apparently, theaters were warned to keep smelling salt on hand to beware of fainting fits. Following that, 1943 saw an adaptation of Phantom starring the singer Susanna Foster as Christine. This was the first of the films to introduce the idea that the Phantom was disfigured by having acid thrown in his face, rather than being disfigured from birth, like in the source material. And perhaps even more significant, this film also introduced an additional motivation on the Phantom's behalf. You see, at the risk of spoiling the plot, the theater's conductor was actually taking credit for all of the Phantom's compositions. Rude! And this plot point was also replicated in 1962 with Hammer Horror's version of Phantom of the Opera. This film also showed the Phantom playing Toccata and Fugue in D minor by Bach, which has now become a cultural trope for horror movies. Now, this list would certainly not be complete without mentioning the Broadway version written by Andrew Lloyd Webber in 1986. This Broadway musical won the 1986 Olivier Award, as well as the 1988 Tony Award for Best Musical. On top of that, it's the longest running show in Broadway history, and the second longest West End musical, after Les Miserables. It has also been followed by a musical sequel called Love Never Dies, but let's not talk about that, shall we? Then just a few years later, in 1989, we saw a more Faustian version of the tale be released, which seemed to draw a bit closer to the original in terms of disturbing images. You see, instead of wearing a mask in this version, the Phantom stitches disguises into his own skin. Believe it or not, that's just the start of it in this film. Then there was Il Fantasma dell'Opera by director Dario Argento. This film, in 1998, takes quite a bit of liberty with the original material. The Phantom in this one is not physically deformed, but is presented rather as having a deformity in his soul, or psyche. I suppose it was more visually appealing that way. And then finally, the adaptation alluded to earlier, which started all of this. 2004 saw an adaptation of the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical brought to the big screen, starring Emmy Rossum and Gerard Butler. This was big, theatrical, and I for one am convinced that this film was at least partially responsible for the upsurge in popularity of film musicals in recent years. So with that, we come to the end of our Poto Spotlight. Now, this is by no means a comprehensive list of all of the adaptations of Phantom, because there are a lot of them. But I do think I have covered at least the basic time. Of course, let me know if you think I've missed anything, for which I will give my sincerest apologies. Comment below, reach out to us on our social media, or check out our podcast on iTunes. We hope to see you for our next vlog, and until then, beware of fainting fits.